So I am Liza Garcia, I'm research coordinator from the Beef and Forage program at North Florida Research and Education Center in Marianna, Florida. So I'm going to talk about the results of two projects that we conduct in Marianna. And the main purpose of this project was to evaluate the forage performance and animal performance. So the first study, this study was conducted with Dr. Jose Dubé, that is a forest specialist in Marianna. So the first project is a grazing trial that right now we have 10 years with this project. So it's about the perennial grass, the Bahia grass, that is the preferred grass for cow-calf operations in the state. And we oversee with some cool seasons forage, grasses and clovers. And we wanted to evaluate what was the forage performance and the animals' performance. The second study was a combination of forage for the cool season, a combination of grass, legume, and brassicas to see which ones work better, and later to conduct with an animal trial. And also the purpose of this project was to extend the grazing season in the cool season for the panhandle of Florida. So as I mentioned before, Florida is very important for cow-calf operations. These operations based in pasture all year round, normally for continuous grazing. The advantage of Florida is like we can support cool season forage and warm season forage. So all year round we can have animals grazing. The introduction of legumes into this forage system is the idea to increase the nutrition level, and that is reflected in the performance of the animals. Also because legumes, as been mentioned before here for Cheryl and Rachel, that legumes have the property to fix nitrogen for their own benefit and also transfer that nitrogen to the plant communities that they are surrounded. So that brings another benefits for our grassland systems here in Florida. Also because for the Florida soils that are very sandy and low with soil organic matter, we need a lot of inputs and fertilizers. So legumes can help us to reduce the use of nitrogen fertilizers. So this system goes all year round from January to October. So we have the main pasture that is the Bahia grass, and we use nitrogen fertilizer. During the cool season was overseen with rye and oat. And we split the nitrogen into two applications of around 100 pounds per acre. The second system is the grass clover that is just Bahia grass with lower input of nitrogen fertilizer. And during the cool season was a mixture of the grasses, rye and oat, and the mixture of clovers that was crimson, ball, and red clover. And the third system that is the grass and rhizoma peanut. So it was Bahia grass with the strips. We planted the rhizoma peanut in strips for economic purposes. And right now, after 10 years, it's a mixture. You cannot see anymore the strips of the rhizoma peanut. So this system had lower nitrogen input, and during the cool season was the rye, the oat, and the same clover mixture that was crimson, ball, and red. These are pictures of the animals grazing. This is the summer, the Bahia grass, and we measure pollinators. We focus on bees, and we use the ball trap method. We use electric fences to separate the animals from these balls, and we display the balls for 24 hours during the 8 months of the trial. And at the same time, we use quadrants. We use 10 quadrants per pasture to count the flowers in the pastures. We count weeds and the inflorescence of the grass and the clovers or perennial peanut flowers. So like I mentioned before, the main purpose of the introduction of the legumes was to observe the animal performance. During the cool season, we didn't have any difference among the three systems. The stocking rate was similar, the average daily gain was similar with the tree system, and the gain per area. But during the summer, that we know the Bahia grass have lower crude protein than the cool season grasses. We observed that the system with the perennial peanut, the animals have a better average daily gain compared with the other two systems, but the stocking rate was lower. So that means we have to take care of the growing conditions of the perennial peanut. So support lower number of animals, but the gains are better compared with the other two systems. And in this study, this was the amount of bees that we found in this study was 18 species of bees, as Rachel and Isaac mentioned before. Apis mellifera, the honey bee, that is an introduced species, but the other ones are wild bees or native bees. And for the behavior that they show, we can notice that these species are part of the sweat bees, and they are ground nesting bees. So the nests were close or both inside the pastures of our grazing trial. Also, that Melissodes was the common bee that we found in our trial, and it's because the station is surrounded for cotton and peanuts. So now it makes more sense that Melissodes was the common bee that we found in our trial. So coming with the behavior. So pastures are great for these small bees, solitary bees. They're underground nests. They are generally, so they can pollinate a variety of plants, and they are more active during the spring, middle spring and summer months. And in this transition of cool season grasses and warm season grasses, sometimes in the pasture with clovers, we actually have the clovers flowering and at the same time the perennial peanut flowering. So it was food resources for the bees. Compared our treatments and the presence of the bees, the grass clover system was greater than the other two. And when we did an orthogonal analysis with the two clover systems compared with the nitrogen, also showed greater presence of bees in the system with legumes. This was the flower density here, and the green one is the grass clover rhizoma peanut, that the peak was in April, and April and May was where more bees were collected. July is the peak of growing of the bahia grass. And also because the bahia grasses are becoming more stemmy, the animals don't eat it that much. So that's the reason we have more inflorescence of the bahia grass. Also for the behavior of the cattle during this hot weather, they try to eat less. They eat early morning or early evening, and bees are more active middle morning and early in the afternoon. So it's not a competition for the cow's behavior with pollinators or other insects. Our second study is the multi-species trial. In this one, we combine the grasses, legumes, and brassicas and trying to see which functional group perform better. For this study, we did, besides to evaluate the forage performance, we did visual surveys counting insect pollinators. We divide by bees, honeybees, bumblebees, wasps, moths and butterflies, and flies, and another insect. Also, with the University of Auburn and a student, we use the emergency traps. We put every week the emergency traps in the plots, and here with a collector with an antifreeze liquid, we collect the insects once per week, and inside the same plot, we move the trap to the other side of the plot. And also we use this to count the cover of the forage or ground soil and counting the flowers. So this was a display of the treatment. There were 3 blocks in a randomized complete block design, and the idea was to compare from 1 grass to 3 grasses, rye, oat, and ryegrass, 1 clover to 3 clovers in combination with the grasses, and also 3 brassicas, the turnip, rake, and kale. And also we have a control, the fall. So there were 30 plots that we were sampling, and during the 2 years, and with 3 harvests. These are the cultivar and the species that we use for this trial. And here is an example of the disc that we use to count the cover of the grass of the clovers or the brassicas and counting the flowers. So here we have a coverage of the flower component per treatment, where we can see where grass was the main the main forage present, it was more covered for the grass. But when the legumes were present, actually crimson clover, as we can see, saw in the picture before, they dominate compared with the other clovers. And brassicas, really, the development of the brassicas was very poor in this trial. And at the beginning of the cool season, grasses performed better, and at the middle, at the end of the trial, the clovers performed better. So this was in this graph, we can see the flower density through the cool season, and crimson clover was always with more flowers and present in most of the plots. In this experiment, we just with the absence of the bees, the functional group that we can find more bees with the emergency traps was the grass legume. With the visual surveys, we couldn't find like a real difference among the treatments. But honeybees and bumblebees were the more frequent, but we cannot notice any difference about the functional groups. With the emergency traps, when we observed the number of bees were greater in the grass legume systems, plots. The same with the bee abundance. And with the bee abundance, it was no different between grass and grass legume brassicas. And again, the presence of the brassicas in these functional groups, that was very poor. Here we have the species that we found. Also part of the sweet bees, many of the native and white bees. And in total, we found 16 species. So we are talking about a small area. The plots are very close, but for us it's very important. And we were really excited to find this number of species in a small area. And with this is no wildflower, so big variety. We are talking about forage, clover and grasses mainly. And again, we are surrounded by the cover crop and a grazing system, very homogeneous agricultural landscape. So in conclusion, we wanted to see what are the benefits of the legumes in the grasslands and all the biodiversity that the introduction of the legumes gave us in the grassland system. And the health of the grasslands is reflected with the biodiversity that we can support in these ecosystems. As I mentioned before, they help with the nitrogen fixation. They can share this nitrogen with the plants around. So that means that it can improve the forage quality that is reflected in the weight of the animals. At the same time, for the different root systems that benefit the health soil that Cheryl was talking about before. And that helps us also to control weeds, control erosion. Also in the system, for producers, it's very important if we can reduce the input in adding fertilizers. And also with the good health of soil, water retention is better, so that's the reason it's better for drought tolerance. And at the same time, with the introduction of legumes, that we know we can support a bee community, another pollinator community, that means more diversity in insects population. Insects population favor the presence of small mammals as rodents, reptiles, and small birds. Birds, like sparrows, they are very common here in Florida. They use grasslands for nest purposes, feed, and also for protection for predators. So there is a big community of other animals that are attracted thanks to a good health in the forage, good health with the soil, and habitat for pollinators. So in conclusion for us, how we can be in this grassland or in this forage functional groups, see the benefits from bees to the total ecosystem. So we know they offer us pollination services that from grassland, they can benefit the crops that are surrounded. Of course, they can support biodiversity because they attract another insects that are predators and also attract birds and reptiles and small mammals. At the same time, the ground nest bees that they make those tunnels offer also nests for another insects that they can use for their own purpose. Grassland can offer also economic value, just not for the production of forage as a hay or for increase the weight of the animals. Also, pollinator services can be offered like for neighbors for crops, so they can pollinate the next crops. Also as an aesthetic value, agrotourism. So it's other economic value that could be added to the grasslands. And as Chair mentioned again, soil health. So we can benefit just for the tunnels that the ground bees can do it is more activate the microorganisms that is better for organic matter, carbon sequestration. So multiple benefits that they can offer the pollinators in a grassland system, a forest system, and especially here in Florida for cow-calf operations. Yeah.